In this video, we're going to do a couple problems that are like those two from the review that we hadn't actually done earlier. So I thought I would show you how to do these. So what we have going on here is we know that our series is geometric, and we don't have the first term, we don't have the ratio. So it'll be hard to find, and those are actually the things I want to find. So one way to think about this problem is I know that the fourth term is 320. And then there's a fifth term, which I don't know. There's a sixth term, which I don't know. And then there's a seventh term, which is 5. And since it's geometric, I know that this number right here is 320 times my common ratio. And I know that this number right here, A6, is 320 times my common ratio again, so my common ratio squared. And what I know is that this number right here, 5, is 320 times my common ratio third to the third power. You could also think of it like this. I could just start with if I take 320 and I multiply by r to get this, r to get this, and r to get this, I will end up at 5. Notice those are essentially the same equation. So then how do we solve for r? Well, first step is to divide my, to get r alone, I'm going to divide 320, which leaves me with r cubed is, and I'm going to reduce that. 5 goes into 320 perfectly. It goes in there 64 times. So what does that mean that r was? Well, what cubed is 64? That would be 4. And what cubed is 1? That would be 1. You could also use your calculator. But what I know is that my common ratio is 1/4. And then I could use that common ratio and sort of work backwards to get to A1. I could use a formula to get to A1. So a couple options is if I know that A4 is 320, and I know that R is 1/4, well, I know that AN, so A4, is my first term, that's what I'm trying to find, times my ratio to the n minus 1 many times. And so basically that's going to be cubed. And so when I want to solve for A1, again, I'm going to, in this case, multiply by, or divide by 1/64, because this is really this answer, times. And so to get my first term, it's going to be 64 times 320. And I could use my calculator to figure out what that number is. And I get an answer of a first term is 20,480. Oops, that's a 20,480. All right, why don't you try one on your own? This one right here. And then in a minute, I will do this for you so you can check your answer. So pause the video and try this one. All right, so again, using our process. So if I start at A3 and I'm going to multiply by my ratio, if I'm trying to get to A8, 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to multiply by my ratio 5 times. You can also think of it as what is 8 minus 3 is 5. And I'm going to end up at negative 16. That's what I know. Starting at 1/3, I'm going to multiply by my ratio a bunch of times, and I'm going to end up at negative 16. So now I have an equation that I can solve. So my first undo, I undo multiplying by 1/2 by multiplying by 2 on both sides. And that gives me r to the 5th is negative 32. And then in my head, I think what cubed is negative 32, or what cubed is 32, and 2, or to the 5th power, sorry. 2 to the 5th is 32. And when I want to get a negative, my ratio is going to be -2. And then I can go backwards. So if I think about here, I am at A3 is 1/2. A2, I must have doubled to get there. So I'm going to divide, and I'd be -1/4. And it should make sense that my numbers are growing if I'm going from 1/2 this. And I'm going to, again, divide by -2, and I'm going to have 1/8. And that's going to be my A1. So hopefully that helps with those review questions.